It started with something so small, I almost laughed it off. Almost. That morning, I was trying to send a picture of our daughter's new apartment to my sister when the Wi-Fi went out. I thought it was just one of those glitches. But when I checked the router, there it was. A new password. I called out to him, and he came in from the den, still holding his coffee like a king returning from battle. "Oh yeah," he said, casual. "I changed it last night. Needed something more secure." I smiled, expecting him to tell me the new one. But he didn't. He just looked at me with that smug, almost playful smirk. The one that used to make me melt when we were young, but lately made my stomach twist. "Okay," I said lightly. "So what's the new password?" He sipped his coffee. "Don't worry about it. I'll put it in your phone later. You'll just forget it anyway." He walked off before I could respond. That was the moment. Just a blip. A single second where something in me shifted. It wasn't about the Wi-Fi. It was the way he smiled when he said it. That quiet satisfaction of knowing he'd done something small that reminded me, and himself, who was in control. I stood there, staring at the blinking router lights, and I felt stupid for caring. But then I realized that wasn't new. Feeling stupid for caring had become my default setting. When we first married, we promised to share everything. Our laughter, our money, our passwords, our lives. But over the years, that promise quietly rewrote itself. Somehow it became me sharing, him managing. After I quit my job, our mutual decision back then, he took over the finances. "You've done enough," he said. "You've earned some rest." And I believed him. I wanted to. I wanted to trust that he saw my work, the laundry, the cooking, the midnight worry sessions about our kids' grades, as equal to his salary. But equality has a funny way of disappearing when only one person has the passwords. At first, he made it sound sweet. "You don't need to stress about the bills, honey. I've got us covered." I remember the warmth I felt, like being protected. But protection becomes confinement when you realize the walls don't have doors. He'd call me the house CFO at dinner parties, laughing as he told our friends how I spend the money faster than he makes it. Everyone would laugh. I laughed too. But later, lying in bed beside him, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder, how would I even know if we were okay financially? He'd stopped showing me the statements years ago. Said it was too boring. One night, when I asked about our savings, he chuckled and said, "You wouldn't understand the numbers, sweetheart." That word, sweetheart, it used to sound tender. Now it sounded like a leash. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it wasn't worth fighting over little things. The Wi-Fi password, the unopened envelopes, the way he corrected me mid-story when our son was visiting. That's not how it happened, dear. And yet, every time, a piece of me retreated further into silence. I started noticing how my name was missing from more and more things. The utility bills, the online bank account, even the car registration. He'd call it streamlining. I called it what it was, erasure. But only in my head. Because you don't confront someone who's spent years perfecting the art of making you doubt yourself. There was this one afternoon. We were sitting in the kitchen, and I mentioned wanting to buy a small treadmill, something to stay active. He laughed and said, "Why don't you just walk around the house? Lord knows you've got the time." The words stung, but worse was how he said them, not cruelly, just casually. As if belittling me had become part of our language. I think that's what control really is. Not the big, dramatic things, but the small humiliations that hide inside jokes, smiles, and routines. Later that week, when our daughter came to visit, she asked for the Wi-Fi password. I turned to him before I could stop myself. He grinned. "Ask your mom." "Oh, wait, she doesn't know it either." They both laughed, thinking it was just another of Dad's silly jokes. I laughed too, because what else could I do? But inside, something twisted tighter. After she left, I found myself wandering into his office. Not snooping exactly, I'm just looking. The drawers were locked. His laptop, password protected. The only open thing on his desk was the router box, the sticker peeled off where the password should have been. That was when it hit me. I wasn't disconnected from the Wi-Fi. I was disconnected from my own home. That night, lying in bed beside him, I listened to his soft snoring and thought about how strange it was that the man I'd once shared everything with now felt like a stranger guarding a secret. I started remembering all the small things that didn't sit right. The new phone bill I never saw. The way he'd rushed to the mailbox before I could. The smirk when I asked about money transfers. Each memory stacked on top of the last like bricks in a wall I hadn't noticed being built. When did I stop being his partner and become his dependent? I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was imagining things, that I was just sensitive. But every time I looked at him, I saw that same quiet satisfaction. That same smile. And so one morning after he'd left for work, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to the mailbox before he could. I stood there, holding the pile of envelopes. Bills, flyers, statements. My heart pounded as I sifted through them. One in particular caught my eye, the familiar logo of our bank. I hesitated. My hands trembled as I held it, like it was something dangerous. A forbidden object. Then I remembered the Wi-Fi password. That smile. The years of don't worry about it. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I slid the envelope under the recipe book in the kitchen drawer. Out of sight, for now. Because sometimes before you can take back control, you have to pretend you've still lost it, and I was done pretending. I waited 3 days before opening it. 3 long, trembling days. The envelope sat hidden under the stack of old recipe cards like a ticking bomb. Every time I reached for that drawer, my pulse quickened. I'd slide the drawer open just far enough to see the corner of the envelope, the neat blue logo of our bank, and then close it again. It's strange, isn't it? How fear can make you delay what you already know will destroy your peace. On the 4th morning, I couldn't wait any longer. The house was quiet, sunlight spilling across the kitchen counter. I could hear the distant hum of the refrigerator, the ordinary sound of a life I'd started to question. I opened the drawer. My hand shook as I tore the envelope open. At first, it was numbers. Just numbers. Rows and rows of them, cold and indifferent. Then my eyes started catching on words. Withdrawal, transfer, pause purchase. My stomach tightened. There were transactions I didn't recognize. Small ones at first, things that could be explained away. Gas stations, dinners, a hotel charge labeled Lakeview Inn. Then came the big ones. Thousands of dollars transferred to an account I'd never seen. Month after month, my heart began to pound in my ears. I read the name of the account again. The last 4 digits didn't match anything I knew, and then something inside me broke open. I read line after line, my mind running through every lie he'd told to cover these numbers. The business trip to Chicago last fall. The client dinner that went late. The new credit card he said was for points. Each memory replayed with a new, brutal clarity. I remembered how he used to hand me small allowances. Fun money, he'd call it. Like I was a child earning a gold star. I thought it was generosity. Now I saw it for what it was. Distraction. Keep me busy while he moved the real money somewhere else. I flipped through the 2nd page. Jewelry store, 1-842-19 a week before our anniversary. I laughed. A short, sharp sound that startled even me. He hadn't bought me jewelry in years. The next line, Hotel Grandview, 617.45, a month later, when he said he was visiting his brother. My knees went weak. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too quiet, like the walls were listening. Then came the cruelest line of all. Flowers and gifts, 103.28 tours, Valentine's Day. That was the night he told me he was too tired for dinner. The night I ate takeout alone, telling myself marriage had seasons, that people grew tired, that love changed form. I believed him. God help me, I believed him. I sat down, the paper trembling in my hands, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I thought of our children. Of all the years I spent patching the holes in our life, keeping the peace. How many times had I defended him? How many times did I tell my daughter, "He's under pressure, sweetie. Work makes men different." My cheeks burned with shame. Because I wasn't just deceived, I was made a fool, and that was the part that hurt the most. I remembered one afternoon last year when I asked him about our savings. He'd looked up from his laptop, amused. "You worry too much," he'd said. "I've got it under control." He smiled then, the same smile from the Wi-Fi day. The same smile that said, "I know something you don't." And I, like a fool, had smiled back. Now, staring at those numbers, I could finally read what that smile had meant. It wasn't affection. It was ownership. That realization hit me harder than any slap could. I folded the statement neatly, set it down, and stared at it like it was an artifact from another life. The air felt thick, charged. My mind was a blur of fury and disbelief. For years, I'd told myself we were a team. That he worked hard so I could take care of the home. That our arrangement was mutual respect. But as I sat there with evidence of betrayal in my lap, I realized it had never been partnership. It was management. He managed me. Every time I asked questions, he'd pat my hand and say, "You're too emotional about money." Every time I noticed something missing, he'd say, "You must have forgotten." Every time I doubted him, he'd kiss my forehead and say, "Don't make up stories. Gaslighting, they call it." I didn't know that word when I was younger, but now it burned in my chest like a truth I'd known all along. The day passed in a haze. I hid the statement back under the recipe book, but this time it wasn't out of fear. It was out of strategy. That evening, I cooked dinner as usual. Roast chicken, his favorite. I set the table, poured the wine, lit the candle. My hands were steady now. He came home late, humming to himself, loosening his tie. "Smells good," he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. I turned my head just slightly, so he caught my hair instead. We sat. The candle flickered between us. He reached for the potatoes, asked about my day. I smiled. "It was productive," I said. And then, with the calm of someone holding all the cards, I slid the folded bank statement across the table toward him. He paused mid-bite. "What's this?" "Something that came in the mail," I said. "You must have forgotten to mention it." His face froze, then smoothed into practiced composure. "You're going through the mail now?" "I was looking for a recipe," I said softly. "Found this instead." He unfolded the paper, scanned it quickly. I watched the vein in his temple twitch. "I don't know what you think this is," he said finally. "You're misunderstanding." "Oh?" I kept my voice light. "Help me understand then." He cleared his throat, pushing the statement aside. "You know how transfers work. Sometimes accounts overlap. It's business-related. You don't get those things." There it was again, that dismissive tone. That quiet assertion that I was incapable. I leaned forward. "Business-related, you said? Jewelry stores and hotels?" His fork clattered. The mask slipped for just a second. "You're being dramatic," I didn't respond. I simply reached for my phone, which I'd set face down beside my plate, recording from the start. His eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" "Making sure I remember this conversation accurately," I said. He stood up, face reddening. "You've lost your mind. After everything I've done for you." "For me?" I interrupted, my voice rising for the first time. "You locked me out of our accounts. You lied. You smiled while you did it. And now I'm supposed to pretend this—" I tapped the paper. "Isn't what it looks like?" He jabbed a finger toward me. "You're ruining this family." I stood too. "No," I said quietly. "You already did." For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then he grabbed his jacket, muttering curses under his breath. The door slammed so hard the candle flickered out. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood there in the dark dining room, the smell of roast chicken still in the air, the bank statement between our empty plates. My hands were trembling, but not from fear anymore. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. I was awake. I picked up my phone and stopped the recording. The screen reflected my face, not the woman who used to laugh off insults or wait for explanations. This face looked different, sharper, steadier. The humiliation that had haunted me for years was gone, replaced by something cleaner, colder. Resolve. He thought he'd taken everything from me. Passwords, trust, control, but tonight I'd taken something back, my proof and my power. It's strange how peace can arrive quietly, almost shyly, like a guest who knocks before entering. 3 weeks have passed since that night. The bank statement is still folded neatly in my drawer, but I don't need to look at it anymore. The truth it carried has already done its work. The first thing I did was visit a lawyer. I remember walking into her office, my palms damp, my voice trembling as I explained what had happened. She didn't look surprised, not at the betrayal, not at the control. She just nodded, calm and certain. "You did the right thing," she said. "You're not crazy. You're just done being blind." Those words stayed with me. Together, we froze the joint accounts, opened new ones in my name, and filed the necessary papers. For the first time in years, my name appeared beside the word owner. Not authorized user, not spouse of owner. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at the kitchen table, the same one where he'd once smirked over dinner, and stared at my new debit card. It felt heavier than plastic should, like a small shield made of self-respect. A few days later, I found out the rest of the story. He'd been funneling money to another woman for more than a year. A coworker. Younger, of course. He'd bought her jewelry weekends away, even helped her with rent. The lawyer showed me the records, and for a moment, I thought I might cry. But the tears didn't come. Instead, I felt clean, like the final piece of a long, ugly puzzle had clicked into place. When he finally came by to talk, I was ready. He stood in the doorway, his voice soft, rehearsed. "You've misunderstood everything," he said. "I made mistakes, sure, but we can fix this." I looked at him. Really looked. The expensive watch, the same smug tilt of the chin. But there was something else now, too. Panic. He wasn't used to me looking him in the eye without flinching. He tried again. "We've been married for 30 years, for God's sake. Don't throw that away over some numbers on a page." I smiled. Slowly. The way he used to when he was the one in control. "Funny," I said. "That's exactly what you did." He went quiet. Then came the pleading, the half-hearted apologies, the promises of counseling, of change. I listened politely, but inside I was already gone. The woman he was talking to didn't exist anymore. When he left, muttering about regretting this someday, I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing in the silence. Then I went to work. One by one, I reset every password in the house. The Wi-Fi, the bank accounts, my emails, even the streaming services. Each keystroke felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I made them strong, unguessable, entirely mine. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the urge to tell anyone what they were. I wrote them down in a small notebook, my notebook, and tucked it into the drawer beside my bed. It wasn't just about passwords, of course. It was about power. I brewed a cup of tea, turned on soft music, and walked through the house room by room. Everything looked the same, but it felt different. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. My home was no longer his territory. It was mine again. I passed by the router, that little box that had started it all, and smiled. I had renamed the network myself. It now read Freedom Borough 1, my daughter called later that evening. "Mom," she said hesitantly, "Dad told us you're separating. Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay," I said. "I'm connected again." There was a pause. Then she laughed softly, not quite understanding but sensing something had changed. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. I hung up, placed the phone beside my tea, and let myself finally feel the weight of everything I'd survived. The betrayal, the humiliation, the years of subtle control, all of it had been fuel for this quiet revolution. And the strangest part? I wasn't angry anymore. I realized I didn't need revenge or his apology or even closure. What I needed was what I'd already taken, my dignity, my trust in myself. the calm knowledge that I would never again live behind someone else's password. I stood by the window, the evening light soft on the curtains, and thought of all those moments I'd mistaken for love. The gentle patronizing, the secrecy, the way he made me laugh at my own expense. He didn't destroy me. He taught me what to guard. For years, he kept me disconnected, one password at a time. I thought I was losing him. But really, I was finding me. And this time, I'm not giving that away. Control doesn't always come wrapped in cruelty. Sometimes it hides behind a smile, a joke, a don't worry about it. Sometimes it looks like love. But love without respect is just another form of ownership. And ownership is not partnership. I used to think the worst thing that could happen was being left out of conversations, finances, decisions. Now I know the real tragedy is leaving yourself out of your own life. The moment I reconnected, to the Wi-Fi, to my money, to my voice, I realized I had never truly lost anything. I'd only been waiting for permission to take it back. And here's what I've learned. When someone keeps you small, it's not because you are. It's because they're afraid of how big you'll become once you're free. What would you have done when you found that bank statement? If this story struck a chord, share it with someone who needs to remember their worth. And subscribe for more stories of women reclaiming their voices, their peace, and their power.